board members whose support made this meeting possible, the AAU presidents, chancellors, and provosts who are here today, and from the U.S. Department of Education, Undersecretary James Quall. Because this meeting grew out of my conversation with Ambassador Oksana Markarova, I want to introduce her to our AAU audience. Ambassador Markarova has served just over a year as the ambassador of the Republic of Ukraine to the United States. She previously served as Ukraine's Minister of Finance. When I met with Ambassador Markarova, we discussed the many ways that AAU member universities are assisting Ukrainian students and scholars whose lives have been so brutally disrupted by the Russian invasion. I'm proud to say that AAU members are assisting in multiple ways at home and abroad. A number of AAU members are providing support for Ukrainian students through emergency funding, free tuition and housing, administrative flexibility, and visa processing support. AAU universities are also hosting displaced Ukrainian students, scholars, and researchers, often working through organizations such as Scholars at Risk, or through direct ties they have established with Ukrainian universities. Some AAU institutions have offered Ukrainian students free access to online learning opportunities, and several of our members have already made commitments to participate in the Ukrainian Global University Consortium. In my meeting with Ambassador Markarova, we discussed not only what AAU members are doing today, but what we might do in the future to assist Ukraine in rebuilding its higher education system. And that is what brings us here today and gives me the singular honor of introducing President Volodymyr Zelensky to you. Like many Americans, I've seen the courage, steadfastness, and commitment to democracy that President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people have displayed. I have admired not only the bravery and patriotism of the Ukrainian people, but also their strategic ingenuity in defending their homeland against this unprovoked attack. Ukrainian ingenuity is not, however, limited to the battlefield. Indeed, President Zelensky and his administration are already looking to the future and planning how to rebuild Ukraine after the war ends. President Zelensky rightly understands that one of the best ways to guarantee a better, stronger, more prosperous Ukraine is to rebuild its higher education system around world-class research universities. Strong research universities not only educate a nation's populace, they contribute immeasurably to innovation, healthcare, economic growth, and cultural vibrancy, and they help retain domestic talent. Today, President Zelensky is here to discuss with us his vision for rebuilding Ukraine's university system to be better than ever before, and how AAU and our members can partner with the people of Ukraine in helping to make that vision a reality. I very much look forward to his remarks and thank him for spending as much time in dialogue with us as is possible afterward. President Zelensky, it is a tremendous honor not only to hear from you today, but also to have you call on the Association of American Universities to work with you in this forward-thinking endeavor. And now, President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm grateful for this opportunity and the honor to present in front of the student audience to answer your questions. You don't all look like students. Some of you are administrators, researchers, presidents, chancellors, but I'm sure that the students hear us, and it is very important for them to see us because my presentation is dedicated to them specifically, and after this presentation I'll be ready to entertain your questions because this is all about choice, the age of choice in your personal lives also, and you make this choice at this very golden age, let me call it, the student age, even earlier sometimes, when you choose your answer to the question who you are, who are you, and what are you? And let me give you one example, it's my own, for you to get the grip of my presentation. I'm president of Ukraine. I studied law and practiced in court, and then became a producer, presenter, a business person, and then became president of our beautiful state. At every stage of my life, I had a different life, seemingly, but in fact, it was one life. This is answering your the question who you are. Are you an actor or just an observer? Do you try to change anything or not? Do you just experience, or you experience and try to help to change, to improve something? This is the choice that is life-changing, that is life-setting for yourself and your country. Maybe some students don't realize it yet, but that's the choice you make every day. And then it becomes part of your character, part of your destiny. Every one of you, perhaps at least once, was in the situation when you were surrounded by hatred, and when you witnessed hatred, hate speech, degrading treatment, or people trying to take something away from someone else. And there are people who just watch and witness. Some people would film it using their cell phones. It's very popular to then post it on the Instagram or YouTube. Some people would just laugh at it, and some people can help. That makes the difference. You stop degrading treatment, hatred, and you can restore someone to one's dignity. In many situations, it can be life-saving or meaning-saving for the people when there was a fatal mistake made, and that deprives you over your willingness to live on. In the films and the movies, some people can be driven to a real suicide. And we've, some of us, seen that in real life. So you have the choice whether you film it, you just see it, or you help to avoid it. Some people use that for the hype on the social media, but there are also some people who wouldn't turn a blind eye and would just help. I remember the terrible day for your nation and all the democratic world, the 11th of September. I was then watching the attack on TV together with my friends, and some of the friends there could not believe their own eyes. Someone suggested that that could only happen in the United States, and somebody was quick with an answer. It can happen in any country, he said. It can happen to anyone because terror knows or recognizes no frontiers. Before the 9/11, I visited New York, the very place, the Twin Towers, and I had that feeling that I could have been one of them or around, trapped in the towers and having the choice of saving my own life and rescuing some people. And I was asking myself, could I help? Could I save anyone? So you feel one day that you're a master of your life, and from that point on, you stay with this power and you look for the ways to implement this power. After the full-fledged incursion of Russia, I received many advices. Most of them was about surrendering to being a victim and giving up, that there were no chances for resistance, that the Russian army was too strong for us, and it would just take 3 to 5 days. Some people suggested that I fled from Ukraine. They were providing the itinerary and the transportation means, and even the weapons, but they didn't know who we were, who I was. and we can see our lives here in Ukraine. Our country will never be a victim again. We will never observe the life passively, and that includes our lives, everyone's life. We want to be actors in this life. This is our choice. This is my personal choice and the choice of the absolute majority of our fellow Ukrainians. This is the power we have. This is our aspiration for freedom, which is inconquerable. And I'm grateful to the people who followed the same choice, who decided to be actors in their life and to act instead of witnessing, fighting for freedom. You have the case law in your country. A long time ago, when there was a verdict by a legitimate court, this all has to be observed in the jurisprudence and followed. The same is true for the foreign politics. What Russia is trying to do is to create a precedent, to make their case. If the humanity can put up with it, this invasion of their neighbor, that will create a precedent. We are trying to create a counter precedent, a counter case for all the aggressors in this world once and for all, to see that the war creates the biggest problems for the aggressor, for them trying to do that. They should know that hatred that they spread around them, hatred around against people like you and me, against other people's will bite back on themselves, will destroy them. This is a very transparent way of fighting, and you can pick up your role in this process. There are some bystanding states. They are neutral. Seemingly, they are not helping in our fight in our struggle for the common values. The same in life. You need help, but there is a crowd of people who are just watching eagerly instead of helping. But there are some states who invest all their might into protecting freedom and stopping the aggression and guaranteeing the rule of the international law. And that is the role chosen by the United States. I'm very grateful to your nation, to your leaders for this choice. And at the end of the day, this is our answer to the question who you want to be, what you want to be. If you don't want to be a victim or an indifferent bystander, you should instead be fighters for democracy, guardians of democracy, because that's how you defend your own way of life, your people, your outlook. And there is no place in that world that you have an outlook upon for any fierce, cruel war. And you know from your own experience, this is the age, this is the situation when you pick up what you prefer, when you choose, when you respond to the challenges, and whether you do anything when you witness injustice. And I would like you to choose this path, the path of being active, being actor, and that will be the way chosen by your country, as it is for our nation. Thank you very much. Glory be to Ukraine.
Thank you, President Zelensky. I'm going to ask all of you who want to ask questions to feel free to raise your hands. But to get us started, I'm going to turn to our board chair, Chancellor Patrick Gallagher from the University of Pittsburgh. Chancellor Gallagher.
Thank you, Barbara. And President Zelensky, thank you for your inspiring leadership, not only for the people of Ukraine, but really for the whole world. I wanted to ask you a question that I think our students may be very interested in hearing, which is What is the status of the Ukrainian university student population now, and how are they doing? And are there ways in which the students from around the world can support them during this time of difficulty?
Thank you very much, Patrick, for this question. You know, it is not easy to maintain education in our state now because there is a big wave. First, we had the pandemic and then the invasion. So the government was looking for different formats of online education that was happening. And because we are intelligent people, and to be intelligent, you have to be educated. So you cannot stop the developmental process. Without education, we cannot develop and be intelligent. So we had different apps developed. The IT partners of our Ministry for Digital Transformation, the Ministry of Education and Science contribute to that, online classes and lectures, and that was being done during the pandemic. I'm sure that you had the same situation, maybe slightly different, but with all it said, I would like to come to our tragedy that started on the 24th of February with the full-scale invasion. Many people, young people, they were standing in lines because they wanted to defend their country. We had long lines to the military commission offices, and many people wanted to join the forces regardless of their training or no training at all. They made their choice inside their soul, in their heart, and they wanted to protect our sovereignty, our integrity, their homes, their parents, their loved ones. And in addition to that, we have the online process. Some classes take place, but you should appreciate that currently we are having this situation. We are just coming back to some kind of arrangement. The settings are already children, well, students, I call them children, but they are young adults, in fact. They are getting ready for their lectures and the exams, tests that they will have. And life must go on regardless of the fact that in some occupied communities, death is reigning. Life in our country must go on and shall go on, and the students will study, I'm sure.
Thank you, President Zelensky. Let me turn now to Ohio State University President Christina Johnson for the next question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Zelensky, for your courage and leadership. Most of the institutions on this call have a particular focus on research, entrepreneurship, and tech commercialization. How can we partner with you to help in the post-war recovery and create partners with Ukrainian companies, Ukrainian institutions, and yourself in order to help the recovery?
You know, for us presently, this program of reconstruction and revival of Ukraine is like a stimulus for life. This is one of the major programs in different sectors of our industry and walks of life. We are arranging partnerships with specific institutions or jurisdictions, for that matter. We have this kind of curatorship, like the UK promised to take care of Kiev region. There are many examples like that. The United States are making their choice there for reconstruction of our states, Canada, and the European states, of course. And in addition to that, we view this not just as a reconstruction of the infrastructure, but schools, universities, kindergartens, even all the educational institutions, because thousands of them have been destroyed, unfortunately. It's a big tragedy, as you can imagine.
Sure.
So the Ministry of Science and Education, the ministry is arranging it for specific universities, and we would be very grateful if we can do some twinning, arrange some twinning.
Yes.
And when we discuss reconstruction, this is not about cash. This is not just
Right.
about money. This is about expertise. This is because we can design and construct a building, a campus, but we need people who have the knowledge, the expertise, who are professionals. So we are prepared for this work, and we would be very grateful indeed if you help us with this kind of reconstruction and the new curricula.
Count on us.
Let me turn now to the president of the University of Michigan, Mary Sue Coleman. President Coleman.
Hello, and thank you so much for meeting with us today. I'd heard a report on National Public Radio here about Save the Children, and children sort of in the kindergarten through high school, a little bit younger than we were talking about with university students. And I'd like to ask you about the impact, and particularly this report that we heard about the abduction, apparently, of a number of children into Russia, seemingly against international law. And if you could just give us your sense about what is going on there. It sounds really, truly horrible.
Thank you very much for the question, by the way. This is not just something that sounds horrible, it looks horrible. And let me divide this question into several tragic blocks. One is 300 children killed because of the bombardments, torturing, missile blasts from the Russian Federation. 300 children killed in this war. The children who were staying in the now deoccupied territories, and we saw that with our own eyes, and we appreciate the facts. But there are some territories which are still occupied, and we cannot count the victims, the casualties there. We do not know how many children were killed there or are in very difficult circumstances. We will know only after the deoccupation. And that brings me to answering the second part of your question, the forceful deporting of the children, the abduction. And we understand that in the temporarily occupied territories, we have about 500,000 people who were deported by the Russian Federation into the Russian Federation. They were separating adults and children. Children were taken to different foster families or family homes or orphanages, boarding schools, whatever you prefer to call that. But they stay without parents. They are parentless there. And we do not know how many children there are and what their condition is. That was forceful. They would take away IDs from the adults, the passports, exchange them for the Russian passports or IDs of some kind. This is a big tragedy for our people. We lost our citizens, and this is like losing your future, especially with the children. And every single case is to be investigated. We are looking for all the people missing now, and we cannot add anything to this, really. That was mental and physical torture, and we have to state here that that's modern slavery. for you. I have no other term for it. And apart from that, because of this full-scale war waged by the Russian Federation, we have another problem affecting education of children, another problem because of the bombardment. 12 million people were turned into IDPs, 12 million. This is a great number. We have 40 million in this country. And out of the 12 million abandoning their homes, damaged or ruined, 5 million went abroad. And they are in different countries, inclusive of the United States, and mostly in Europe and neighboring countries like Poland, first of all. And I would like to thank all the countries receiving our children and making it possible for them to continue their schooling, because it's very important not to lose any educational experience. It may be a different curriculum, a different state, a different language of instruction, but they should continue with their studies, because the time will come when we deoccupy the territories and the majority of them will come back to their homes. And this is a multi-vector problem for our children, either deported or turned into IDPs by this war.
Thank you. I want to turn now to Chancellor Howard Gilman from the University of California, Irvine. Chancellor Gilman.
President Zelensky, it's a genuine honor to be able to speak with you. And please know that all of our institutions are here standing at the ready to help as best we can. On our campus, we have a wonderful professor of engineering, Irina Zenyuk. I would like you to know her name, who has mobilized our campus to be prepared to support not just students, but Ukrainian academics and scholars. And we have raised money, and we are prepared to host scholars and academics and their families. Is there a more effective way for all of us to identify these scholars and academics and their families that we could build a relationship with and we can bring into our communities?
Thank you very much for your support, for your readiness to continue with such assistance. We count on it that after the war, our teachers, our faculty will be joined by experts like yourselves, professionals who will be able to come to us, and the educational space of Ukraine should be stepped up, and for the people to experience and survive the terrible war, they will be also craving for knowledge, for skills, and they all love their teachers and their instructors, but it's always great to try something new and to extend your knowledge, and you'll be excited to come to Ukraine, I'm sure. Not every child or every young person can get this opportunity in the United States and Canada, some European educational institutions, but if you can support us in that way, we would be grateful. And I believe you. I can see behind you the pictures. I'm sure that this is your family. You can see from here. And you are speaking from the bottom of your heart, I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, President Zelensky. Ted Mitchell, President of the American Council on Education, is with us and has the next question. Ted.
Thank you, Barbara. And Mr. President, it really is quite an honor to be with you. And like everyone on the call, we've been inspired by your personal example and by the heroism throughout Ukraine. So thank you so much for what you have shown all of us. I want to pick up on the thread that Howard was just leading to. The dislocation of so many Ukrainians and so many Ukrainians of great talent, intellectual richness, and resource creates a challenge when they come back. And I want to make sure that in addition to knowing that we will support Ukrainian scholars, students, and families, we want to support their ability to work with you on the way home. And so in addition to providing a safe haven for them, we want to work with you to make sure that they all feel that they are a part of the reconstruction of Ukraine, the renaissance of Ukraine when they return. And I hope that we, as a community of scholars in the US, can engage our Ukrainian allies who are now with us in that project, imagining what the Ukraine education system ought to be like when they return to rebuild it. We want to be involved in that project as well, and we stand ready to help.
Дуже дякую. Але
Thank you very much for that readiness. But let me be quite frankly with you. Whatever the difficulties after the end of this war, it is of vital importance for us, for the students, for the researchers to come back, because without education, without studentship, we cannot do. We will face a terrible stagnation in this state. Even with all the due optimism, I'm quite convinced that we shall overcome someday, but we can lose the power of youth, the power and energy of young people, without which we can have no future and we cannot create anything. So I'm sure that we'll be able to create instead the best conditions when they come back and for Ukraine to prosper in that way. It is very important. Speaking in English, I would like to say to see them back in Ukraine, not back in the USSR, remembering the famous song. And that's what we are fighting for, our state in that way.
President Zelensky, I wanted to ask you a question about how faculty and staff at universities are doing, because in addition to students listening in, we also have a number of faculty and staff from our AAU universities. How are faculty and staff doing, not being able to do their research the way they used to and not being able to reach students the way they used to?
You know, nevertheless, I can tell you this. Life is coming back and quickly, so quite fast. In all the deoccupied territories, Kyiv is being repopulated with the faculty, the staffers, and people are coming back to their workplaces, to the universities, getting ready for their classes. All the classes are currently online, but I'm sure that everyone is sick of this idleness, and the life at the educational institutions is regalvanized. People cannot get used to war, but yes, you want to continue your life, and work is an essential part of life, especially for intellectuals, researchers, educators. They want to see their students, they want to see the future, even using their cell phones or computers, see them on display. And the education is coming back to the regular procedures like the independent testing, the entrance examinations, and which is due this summer. And I think everything will be okay. I don't know.
Well, thank you. As you think about the future, I'm interested in knowing what priorities you would have for programs to prepare students for the future in Ukraine? Are there particular programs that you think would be important for students to be involved in studying as you think about rebuilding Ukraine to be better than before?
Я думаю, що
I
чесно,
think that the Ministry of Education is a better place to answer such questions, but let me offer my opinion. Even before this war started, we would understand that we had some specific occupations, state-of-the-art occupations where we needed people. And I mean security specifically, because we have such a neighbor, such circumstances. We had to be very particular about our education. And we had to prioritize in that way. Now we have this as our routine, this continuous pressure because of the cyber threats, cyber attacks, and the armed aggression on the part of the Russian Federation. We have a lot of time and lots of curricula dedicated to providing for this kind of education in our state with the occupations. In IT, the cluster is very well developed, and many young professionals contribute to the defense sector and aeronautics and cyberspace developments, like I was telling you. And we also are paying attention to the medical care system. We had some gaps because of the pandemic. We lacked the vaccines, and we were not capable of either developing or manufacturing vaccines. So now we have to place this emphasis on medical professions for the future. That is.
Let me also mention something that I would imagine is important as well. You talked about technology and healthcare and things related to engineering and the sciences, but also in the humanities, studying the culture of Ukraine. I imagine that that is important to you as well.
дуже важливо. До речі,
Extremely important. Yes, it is. By the way, one of the biggest reasons or excuses for this war against us is that they want to devastate or destroy our culture, our history. They do not recognize us as an independent actor in the international arena. They do not accept our independence. So the humanities, the humanitarian aspect stemming from it, this is all very important to us.
Let me turn back to President Coleman from the University of Michigan again with another question.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up a bit about since 2014, this specter has been hanging over Ukraine. And has it been possible for your libraries to secure their materials, their documents, their books? How do you sort of evaluate that preservation? This knowledge is so important. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Starting from the date of February 24, many libraries have been destroyed, and resource centers. We used to have libraries as dedicated assets, but also the universities and schools. And sometimes it would be destroyed because of the bombardment of the educational institution itself. It was on the campus. Now we are going to renovate all the universities, all the libraries. And some universities have e-libraries available, electronic libraries. And we have the e-copies of some books in the electronic formats. But nevertheless, we have to state here that a lot has been destroyed. And it's very unfortunate indeed.
Let me turn now to the president of the University of Virginia, Jim Ryan. President Ryan.
President Zelensky, it really is an honor to be with you. There has been a lot of misinformation and disinformation about the motives of the war and how it's been progressing. And I'm wondering if you see a role for American universities of doing more to combat that. And then the second question on a personal level, I hope you don't mind my asking, how are you holding up? You have been an unbelievable model of courage. And I'm sure it's taking an enormous toll, and I just on a personal level wanted to express my concern and support.
I don't think of myself as a model of bravery or anything. I think every adequate person in my shoes would do the same. I'm a president, I'm the leader, and that's the only way to be that. But thank you very much. We are all inspired by our people, by our children, because this is the way to go, and we'll be held responsible as parents, as adults at this point. And as a parent, I'm answerable to my children. The former part of your question about the fakes and disinformation, misinformation, unfortunately, it's all weaponized. And we have to state here that cyber weapons, information weapons, disinformation, I don't know what is more powerful, some heavy metal, some cannons, some artillery, or the information attack. Now, let me give you some examples. In the communities where they are exposed to continuous disinformation, even in the European states where Russia was heavily present in the information space. So the Nazi myth was spread through the media, Ukraine as a Nazi state, and they used their platforms, media platform in Germany and France and Israel, not just in Russia. But thank God for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, having the precedence, and they could analyze and compare. You can analyze, you have multiple sources of information, and you can think, having analyzed and considered, weigh the opportunities. That's what we have the intellect for. But it is very difficult for modern day Russia. They have no independent media left. People are just fed with this not a la carte information. This is like a canteen, like cafeteria. You're just served with them what they choose to give you. And that information attacked millions of people, literally, not just in Russia, but in all the world where people care to listen. In Africa, they have their information presence in the African continent, in Asia, and they still spend billions of dollars on a monthly basis. They have enormous budgets. What is fake as a notion? This is no alternative. This is pollution of the information space, and there is no alternative. And a lot of money is invested in the production of such fake news. They can shoot their own people. They can arrange for an explosion with the casualties and point their finger to Ukraine. Unfortunately, we're dealing with one of the most powerful countries choosing to spend enormous money on this kind of information policy and such productions. So for yourselves and the students, you have to explain that analysis is key. They have to analyze, and as intelligent young people, they have the patience, they have the stamina, they can analyze and they can find the truth and make their informed choice. And when you understand what truth is, where it is, you can choose accordingly.
Thank you, President Zelensky. Peter Salovey, president of Yale University, has the next question. President Salovey.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I know I speak for everybody when I say we so admire and appreciate your leadership and the bravery and suffering of the Ukrainian people. It's really a privilege to be with you today. Let me ask you this question. We have been very impressed by our Ukrainian students who are on our campuses. On my campus, they have organized rallies in support of the Ukrainian effort. They have been educating their fellow students, even while they themselves have been incredibly stressed and concerned about their families back in Ukraine. Many of us have responded by reaching out to them personally, by restructuring their financial aid and other kinds of assistance, by becoming very much more flexible with their academic requirements. So my question is, if there are other ways in which we can support the Ukrainian students on our campus, I think many of us would like to do that. And so we'd be interested in your thoughts about that. Let me also add a second part, which is in a way a little trickier, which is we also have students from the region who are not Ukrainian. We have students from Poland. We have students from the Baltic states. Indeed, we have students from Russia who are in a very stressful position themselves in a certain way. And if you had any thoughts about the way we should think about those students as well, I think we'd all be interested. Thank you very much.
It's a very difficult one. Honestly, the latter part of your questions especially is very difficult for me to entertain. Let me try, though. Speaking of students, I understand that we should not discriminate. The country of origin doesn't matter. It's a human being, and those who are eager to get the knowledge, who are not so eager, that's the only divide we can have. But you have to understand how it all happens. What Russia started against our state requires a specific response from the society of the Russian Federation, and everyone belongs to this society. If, as an adult, you should feel responsible, and students are adults, however young. It's not about your nationality in terms of passports. It's about not remaining silent about things, speaking up. And sometimes you cannot act against this war started by the leadership of your country, the military, political leadership, for that matter, all together in this horrible synergy of the Russian Federation. You should not remain silent, making excuses that you cannot change anything or you're afraid even. This is not right. This is not fair, because your silence is eloquent in terms of support, because you support not necessarily with the deeds, but with the silence that you maintain. And if the students from the Russian Federation, they are studying at your universities, and they against this war. They recognize the shameful fact that this is a crime on the part of the Russian Federation, and they should say so. If they don't speak up, they just take your knowledge as a capital and come to their homes, their country with that capital, and being that's education, they can support the war, contribute to the war with their expertise and their education. And there are many cases of that. So the question is what they get for your universities, the knowledge, the ticket to the future, the profession, the career. They are just takers, but they should become also givers. And the responsible parties, when it comes to some action, maintaining silence is not an option. Of course, you have your choice, but I don't think a civilized person in this civilized world should not turn the blind eye when somebody's rights are violated, somebody's being killed, somebody is being deprived of essential things like home, like family. And I know many people living in the Russian Federation, sometimes they're too afraid to stay and they leave the country and start supporting Ukraine, not the aggressive war policy on behalf of the government. They were afraid for their families, and I appreciate that. But there are some people staying in Russia and supporting Ukraine. There are very few of them, but still, they can use the social media. They make some protests, individual or otherwise. They do something, and the same is true with the students that study at your universities. But this is my personal view.
Thank you, President Zelensky. The next question will come from one of our provosts, Charles Zukowski from the University of Southern California. Provost Zukowski.
President Zelensky, we're quite honored that you would take time to spend with us today. Thank you very much. I'm interested in the early part of the war. The Chernobyl site was overrun and there were bombings of a nuclear power plant. And I'm wondering about the how you imagine the environmental depredation that has taken place, the risks of nuclear spread, and what we as universities might be able to do to work with you to protect those sites and that infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that for the scientists and exchange of information and knowledge, I'm sure we can and should cooperate. This is my strong conviction. Speaking of nuclear energy, you know that it wasn't just Chernobyl and PP. We deoccupied it. Thank God for that. The IAEA checked the site and some experts. The situation is more or less stable now. But the people who occupied that site had no knowledge. They wanted to operate the facility, and many of them left being exposed to severe radiation dosage. In parallel with that, they attacked Energodar, Zaporizhia, NPP. They were shelling, they were aiming at the nuclear power units. So for the exchange of expertise and knowledge, we should also discuss the damaged units at nuclear power plant. The Energodar community is still occupied, mind you. But I have to say here that for the second time, this combatants there, they did not take the risk. They knew by that time that they should not interfere with the operations, the qualified staff. So our operators are staying there and they are heroic people. They did not abandon the dangerous place because they did not want to expose Ukraine or the continent, for that matter. You understand, as an expert, 6 power unit instead one, just one, exploding back then in Chernobyl. This is a very high risk indeed. And nevertheless, I think with the assistance of the embassy, we can get in touch with your experts willing to contribute, and we can work together for sure. Why not?
Chancellor Gilman again, another question, please.
Thank you so much. Mr. President, you began this meeting with a message to our students about how important it is not just to be observers, but to be actors in the world. You've also been one of the great spokespersons in modern history for defending democracy. And many of our students have not had to think about or contemplate what it would mean to lose the privilege of living in a democratic system. Some of them don't vote, some of them don't participate in democracy. Do you have a message to our students about how they should think about the privilege of being in a democracy and what responsibilities they may have to help preserve and defend democratic values?
First of all, when we discuss values, let me be frank there. Our society is a proof of the importance of values. After February 24, the priorities changed, and it is very visible now. One comes to this understanding: you have the right to your life, but you take it for granted. You are breathing, you're walking and talking, you have a choice of company, of your special ones, you have your chat, you can change your personal circumstances, you can be alone, you can be in a partnership, you can be married, it's your choice. You don't think about it. You wake up, you have your breakfast, you switch on your radio or your music, you do some sports. This is just another day, and you are not aware of the importance of it. But when the occupation, the invasion and occupation starts, everything is in jeopardy. Every single step, however tiny, is endangered, is undermined. I'm talking on behalf of the people who are like those recovering from a surgery, difficult surgery. You learn to talk again, to walk again, to take care of yourself. You have no choice. You wake up at 8 a.m., maybe because of the sirens, you can be disturbed in your sleep in the dead of night, and you just pick up your belongings, and with your family, you go to the shelter, some basements, to some parking, or to the underground, wherever the shelter is. And you have no choice of your pastime. There is no such choice. There's no choice in life. Choice in life is a value. This is about rights. This is about freedom. This is about protecting your choice, having the right to life. I don't think, well, I'm the one to admit that in peacetime, I did not contemplate this right to life, but they deprive one of that. And this is not just words. Ukraine is defending these very values for the whole world. And I am sure that people can learn from this example and decide whether they can allow for such actions, they can tolerate such actions as the Russian Federation chose to present to the world. only one thing we have to defend, to protect your rights as much as you can, the country, the sovereignty in peacetime, because when the war comes, you have no choice. You just have to defend the only right I was referring to, the right to life, and that's it.
President Zelensky, I want to thank you for spending this hour with the Association of American Universities members, their presidents and chancellors and provosts and students and faculty watching on YouTube. We are so grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation and look forward to continuing to work with you. Thanks to all of the AAU member universities, their university communities who were part of this today. We're grateful to have all of you as part of this important conversation. Thank you.
Дуже дякую. Для мене була честь.
Thank you very much. The honor is mine. Thank you.